All right, thanks everybody for waiting. Good morning. My name is McKenna Fulton. I'm the Community Program Coordinator for the Myasthenia Gravis Association. We're glad you are joining us this morning for our special webinar. If you're new to the MGA and need a new patient packet, please email us at info@mgakc.org. In addition to today's webinar, we have a virtual monthly meeting coming up on Monday, February 24th from 6:30 p.m. Central Time to 7:30 p.m. Central Time, where we will be talking about adaptive yoga. You can find the link to register on our website at www.mgakc.org. We are pleased to have Dr. Vickie Petz Kasper joining us this morning. In addition to being an OBGYN, Dr. Kasper is also living with myasthenia gravis and is the creator of Healthy Looks Great on You podcast. We'll let you take it away, Vickie.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, how many times have you been asked, do you think stress caused you to develop MG? Or how about this one? Does it run in your family? And I think people are genuinely curious, but I also think they're worried about their own risk. Because if you did something to cause your MG, then maybe they're safe. But sometimes it feels like blame. And we probably do it to ourselves too. What did I do or not do that caused my life to be interrupted by weakness? Like maybe it was the 5G cell phone towers or microplastics or too many Diet Cokes, or I shouldn't have been vaccinated, or I should have been vaccinated. Could it be the aluminum in my deodorant, breast implants, or all those tattoos? Or maybe I stepped on a crack and it totally jacked up my immune system and it turned against me. I don't know. Maybe it's too much butter. For years, I was a self-described health nut. I didn't eat any processed foods and I cooked really healthy, unless you count all that butter. I mean, what proper Southern woman cooks without pounds of butter? Okay, well, me, because now I'm a convert. Actually, butter didn't cause my MG, and neither did any of those other things, but it certainly didn't help my cholesterol. And it used to kind of make me mad that for years, other than the butter, I had lived such a healthy lifestyle, and yet I got this disease. So what actually causes myasthenia gravis? Well, we really don't know, so I'm going to leave that to the experts. We do know there is a genetic tendency towards autoimmune disease in general, and for sure, there is immune dysfunction for whatever reason. Maybe it's not the butter, but there is no doubt that lifestyle affects health. In fact, 80% of all diseases treated by primary care physicians can be treated, prevented, and sometimes even reversed by lifestyle modifications. In fact, it's often the first line recommendation. Now, that leaves 20% of diseases that can't be altered by lifestyle. So remember, there's not always blame to assign. But regardless, lifestyle can optimize your health. I'm now board certified in lifestyle medicine, which is a subspecialty of conventional medicine that focuses on 6 pillars of lifestyle for optimum health. The 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine are nutritional eating, physical fitness, positive social connections, avoiding risky substances, stress management, and restorative sleep. Let's take a quick look at each of these. Now, I want you to know this is the one that got me interested in lifestyle medicine. Like many of you, my myasthenia gravis was treated with high-dose prednisone. Isn't that a fun drug to take? And it caused steroid-induced diabetes. It was miserable. Now, fortunately, it went away after I stopped the prednisone, but unfortunately, it started creeping back. And so my doctor looked at me and said, "Are you willing to make radical changes?" And I looked at him and said, "I'll do anything to not be diabetic." So he recommended that I follow a whole food, plant-based diet, and I was able to completely reverse pre-diabetes. And yes, now I know that butter is not plant-based. Now, side note, eating a plant-predominant diet is not the same as being a vegetarian. It's not necessarily being vegan. Instead, it's focusing on whole food and getting the majority of your calories from plants. Next is physical fitness. Now, if you know my MG story at all, you know I had this one down. I was incredibly fit when I got myasthenia gravis, pedaled my bicycle about 100 miles a week. Fortunately, I have been in remission for a few years now, and I'm back at the gym regularly. And I'm so thankful because this is an important part of my life, and it probably is yours too. Next is social connectedness. Now, I'm naturally a social butterfly and I need people. And whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, you need people too. But MG can sure throw a monkey wrench in your social life. So it's important to be intentional about connection. And I just want to acknowledge that the online MG community was an absolute lifesaver for me when I was just confined to my recliner. And social media can be a source of connection, but only if you engage with others in a meaningful way. Your mental health actually worsens if you're a scroller, looking at everyone else enjoying life while you're sitting on the sidelines. Social connection requires give and take in whatever form. So, no matter how limited you are physically, you have something to give. So, figure out what it is and connect. Next is stress management. And there is no question that stress affects your immune system. And I lived my whole life in high gear. I had a very demanding career as an OB-GYN doctor, but I had an inner peace and I felt like I managed my stress pretty well. I cannot count the number of times that people blamed my illness on stress. The truth is, I had the highest level of stress in my life after I developed generalized MG. And look, everyone has stress. Either you manage it or it manages you. Next is exposure to harmful substances. My mom is a teetotaler, and she always said no harm may come from drinking alcohol, but no good came from it either. And with the more recent studies, it turns out she might be right. There is more and more evidence that exposure to alcohol and, of course, tobacco is not good for you. It can interfere with your medications too, as well as contribute to poor sleep, which is the focus of this webinar. Restorative sleep is essential for life, but it's not always easy. Of all 6 pillars in my healthy lifestyle, this is the one I neglected. And that's why I'm so passionate about sleep. I mean, I was an OB doc, and those babies come at all hours of the day and night, so it's not like I had a lot of choice. But also, I did not value sleep or rest. In fact, I treated rest like a 4-letter word. I even said stupid things like, sleep is for wimps. I pushed myself to the limit. I'm not saying poor sleep caused my MG, but we do know there is a connection between the immune system and sleep. And today we're going to look at the important work of sleep and how it affects the immune system. And then we'll talk about how to leverage better sleep for better health. Now, here's my disclaimer. I am a medical doctor with 3 decades of experience. I'm board certified in OB-GYN and lifestyle medicine, but I'm not specifically trained in sleep or neurology or immunology, and I'm not giving any medical advice. The purpose of this webinar is for educational purposes and should never be a substitute for medical care received by your personal healthcare provider. I share my personal experience and insights in order to help others know they're not alone. I developed a special interest in sleep when I realized it is one of the pillars of health that I ignored. But you should continue to follow your healthcare provider's advice and take all your medications as prescribed. But I want you to know that I am an MG patient, and you can see a little evidence in this picture. Look at that eyebrow. This picture was a few years before I was diagnosed, but it's a telltale sign. Now, as a society, we have underestimated the importance of sleep and the work that goes on while we're getting our Z's. Sleep is hard and important work. And now the medical community is starting to recognize that poor sleep is a contributing factor to adverse health outcomes, physical, mental, and emotional. Poor sleep is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, which is still the #1 killer of Americans. And this includes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart attack, and stroke. Sleep is also necessary for hormone balance, and lack of adequate sleep is associated with obesity and type 2 diabetes. And without good sleep, especially in midlife, there's an increased risk of developing dementia. The risk of depression goes up by tenfold. And even some types of cancer have been linked to insufficient sleep. So it shouldn't be surprising that chronic sleep loss affects the immune system. I'm not an immunologist, but I'm pretty good at explaining medical conditions. And on my podcast, Healthy Looks Great on You, I take my listeners to mini medical school. So let's go to immunology class and learn a little bit about the sleep immune connection. Now, don't stay up late and study. There's not an exam to pass, and I promise to keep it interesting so you don't doze off. First of all, your immune system is designed to protect you from foreign invaders. Its primary job is to fend off bacteria, viruses, fungi, and cancer. Imagine your body's immune system as a vigilant security team in a city. Normally, they patrol calmly around, responding to appropriate threats. The surveillance team is supposed to function with a highly regulated response, recognizing a potentially harmful antigen, activating and motivating forces to defend against it, mounting a precision attack, as well as controlling and ending the attack when the threat is over. When sleep is constantly disrupted, it's like a security team that becomes overstimulated and anxious, and they start shouting alerts constantly, seeing potential threats everywhere, and releasing excess stress chemicals. Then they become less precise in their threat. So that can result in what happens to us, which is an autoimmune disease where the body attacks itself. Now, this hyperactive security team begins creating unnecessary inflammation, damaging normal city infrastructure, and just wearing themselves out. That makes them less effective at handling real threats. Okay, now you know why I'm not an immunologist, but because I have MG, I do completely understand immune chaos. In autoimmune conditions, we have a system operating in panic mode that fails to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy cells and tissues and launches an unnecessary attack, leading to uncomfortable and sometimes very dangerous symptoms. Friendly fire, so to speak. Good, consistent sleep acts like a calm supervisor who helps the security team reset, stay focused, and respond proportionately to actual risk. So everybody just calm down and get some sleep. And no, it's not that simple. But we do know there is a link between sleep and optimal function of your immune system. While you were sleeping, your body was doing some of its most important business in the immune department. T cells, which are like your immune special forces, become more active during sleep. These cells are critical in fighting off infections, and in autoimmune conditions like MG, they need proper regulation to prevent them from becoming overactive. Your body produces and releases important immune system proteins called cytokines during sleep. Think of these as communication system between your immune cells, and without enough sleep, this communication gets scrambled. Growth hormone is primarily released during deep sleep. So you have to have an adequate quantity of sleep so that you get to that quality sleep where growth hormone production happens. And growth hormone supports immune cell production, aids tissue repair, and helps regulate the immune response. And let's talk about cortisol, often called the stress hormone. And it's a big player in regulating inflammation, so it affects the autoimmune disease activity. Cortisol has a natural daily rhythm that's deeply connected to sleep. Normally, cortisol peaks in the early morning to help you wake up and gradually decreases through the day, reaching its lowest point at night when you're supposed to be sleeping. But here's what happens when sleep gets disrupted. Your cortisol rhythm gets thrown off balance. It's like having your body's internal alarm clock constantly going off at the wrong times. Instead of that gentle morning wake-up call, you might have a high cortisol at night when you're trying to sleep, or low cortisol in the morning when you need to be alert. This disrupted cortisol pattern affects more than just your energy level, it impacts your emotional well-being too. Have you ever noticed how everything feels more intense after a poor night's sleep? There's a reason for that. Now, melatonin is the sleep hormone, but it also plays a role in immune modulation. It's a powerful antioxidant and helps control inflammation. It regulates your body's internal clock. The secretion of melatonin sets off a cascade of hormones, and this complex interplay between all these hormones and immune cells requires a delicate balance. Sleep disruption affects neuromuscular function, which means that consistent, high quality sleep is crucial for maintaining optimal receptor function in myasthenia gravis patients. And if melatonin is the sleep hormone and regulates all of the other hormones, what regulates melatonin? The answer is light. Light is super important when it comes to sleep. And you need bright light in the morning when you wake up, and you need to be dark at night when you're sleeping. And that helps maintain this delicate balance. And a good night's sleep starts first thing in the morning when you wake up. And the most important thing you can do is bright light exposure. Get outside if you can. This helps synchronize your internal clock. It's also important to begin dimming the lights at night so that your sleep doesn't get out of whack. Another thing that's really important in setting your internal clock so that you can sleep is maintaining a regular schedule. It's important to go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every morning, even on the weekends. And what you do throughout the day matters too, things like diet and activity. Like I said before, good sleep starts first thing in the morning, but the end of the day is just as important. Creating a wind down routine can help you get the sleep you need. And focus on things that relax you, like soothing music or read a non-stimulating book. Dim the lights and avoid screens for about an hour before bedtime. They emit blue light, and that can mess up your melatonin and internal clock. Maybe drink a cup of warm tea, take a bath, and remember, the word routine means you do it all the time. And not only do you need to relax your body, but you also need to relax your mind. So be intentional about stress management. Meditation, prayer, deep breathing exercises, light stretching, whatever activity you can do. And I know with MG, sometimes you're limited, but focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. Now, when it comes to optimizing your sleep, you also need to pay attention to your bedroom. And the bed should only be used for sleep and sex. And when you sleep, think cave, cool, dark, and quiet. So it can help to have blackout drapes. Or one thing I've started doing recently that's been a game changer is wear a sleep mask. You can get ones that are really comfortable and they make it completely dark. But if you need to get up and go to the bathroom and you need a little light, you just pull it up over your forehead. As far as noise goes, you can use white noise. They have apps for that, or you can put in some earplugs. And you want the thermostat to be turned down, ideally to around 67 to 69 degrees. Now, one other thing I want to mention is clutter, because clutter in the bedroom can interfere with sleep because it kind of represents unfinished business. And not only can you have clutter in your bedroom, you can also have clutter in your mind, and that can keep you from sleeping. On my website, I have a free resource for you called Turn Off Your Mind and Get Some Sleep if you want to check that out. Now, we all know that medications and substances can also keep you awake. Of course, there's caffeine, which should really be limited to the earlier part of the day, although I feel like when my MG was at its worst because of its mild acetylcholinesterase activity, I could drink a cup of coffee late in the day and get away with it. That is no longer true. And then alcohol. It's best if you do drink alcohol to avoid it at least 2 hours before bedtime, so kind of have a last call. But sugar and salt throughout the day can be hidden in places in your diet, and those can also affect your sleep. But for those with autoimmune diseases, prednisone can be a special challenge. So I'll say it again, focus on what you can control and not what you can't control. Now, the natural release of cortisol is lowest between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. So that's why usually you're prescribed prednisone first thing in the morning when you wake up. Sleep is often more of a challenge for people with MG, and there's a complex interplay between sleep disruption and neuromuscular function. That means that consistent high quality sleep is crucial for maintaining optimal receptor function in myasthenia gravis patients. But it's also more challenging when you're taking drugs like prednisone that are steroids. Sleep deprivation also affects the emotional center of your brain, the amygdala. And without enough sleep, this emotional control center becomes hyperactive. It's kind of like having your emotional volume turned on max. Things that normally wouldn't bother you suddenly become overwhelming, and you might find yourself more irritable with loved ones, crying more easily or getting angry outbursts, feeling anxious about everyday situations, having trouble making decisions, or experiencing mood swings. And remember, improving sleep won't cure myasthenia gravis, but it can help support your immune system and your overall health, physical and emotional. And like my journey with butter, sometimes a small change can make a big difference in how you feel. The good news is that prioritizing sleep can restore emotional balance. When you get consistent quality sleep, you're better equipped to handle life's challenges, including the ups and downs of living with myasthenia gravis. Today, we've talked specifically about sleep in myasthenia gravis, but if you'd like to learn more, I have an upcoming masterclass called 6 Surprising Reasons You're Tossing and Turning. It's a live free webinar, but registration is required. If you want to scan this QR code, you can save your seat. There are 3 options. You can also subscribe to my podcast, Healthy Looks Great on You. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon, Podbean, all the places, including Apple. But if you go to my website, you can sign up for those resources that I talked about, such as turning off your mind so you can get some sleep. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a minute, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, thank you. That was great. I think you already got one question. Do you want me to read them or can you see them?
I can't see them.
Okay, it's at the bottom. Someone asked, I've been using a brown noise machine for the past year and have increased my average sleep. Oh, it was not a question. Time about 30%. So that's great. Thanks for sharing.
Sleep hygiene really does work, and it's super important. It can be very complicated, but that is a perfect example of how just making one small change and you see real results. That I really applaud that. That's awesome.
That was the only comments so far, but might give some time to see if anybody else has any questions or would like to share anything. Thank you. That was a great presentation. It was really engaging and just appreciate you being here this morning.
Sorry about the technical difficulty.
Oh, no, it's all
That
good.
was all my fault. It was not McKenna's fault. It was mine. I thought I had everything all ready to go and then couldn't figure out how to share my screen.
Sorry. First, was there a typo and that was just asked? Let me ask. If you go to the bottom of the screen, Vickie, do you see the Q&A?
I do now.
Okay. I don't know if that.
The website, how to reach the website. Let me put that in the chat. Can I do that?
Oh, it says reach. Okay. I was like,
Let's see. No, that's going to only do it to everyone. Can I do it? Oh, here, I can type my answer here. Go to www.healthylooksgreatoonyou. And it's not good, it's great.com. And if you do that, it'll take you to my website and you can look through all the different resources there. And I do my podcast every Friday morning. And yesterday, the one that I released was 7 serious diseases associated with poor sleep. And I'm doing a focus on sleep this entire month. I have another episode called Why is Sleeping So Hard? I have one about clutter that's actually on someone else's podcast, but you should be able to find that on my website as well. And then this month, I'll do an entire focus on sleep.
well, if there's no more questions, I don't know if there's any more. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I will send out a quick survey at the end of this, and the link for our virtual monthly meetup should be in there as well if that's something you are interested in.
All right. And if anyone thinks of any questions later, you can find me on Facebook as Dr. Vickie. It's Vickie, Dr. Vickie, and I share a lot of information there as well.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.